Today, I interviewed Matt Shields, who is the CEO and founder of a company doing over 300,000 a month. He's a ninth grade dropout that has a passion for business and has interviewed some of the biggest people in this space. Literally people making tens of millions of dollars and that have built websites for Coca-Cola, Home Depot, and many more brands that you will probably recognize.
So you have an agency that's valued at over $100 million.
Yeah. We're doing websites for, Coke and Georgia Pacific and Lotus Cars and Porsche, Home Depot. And so working with some of the biggest brands in the world.
What is the biggest thing someone like you takes away from hanging out with Richard Branson?
You'll never be able to lead a team further than your own personal leadership. The business will never grow more than the growth of the leader.
Collectively, if you consider his one or two other businesses, he's actually making closer to 500K, $500,000 a month, recurring every single month. So this guy kind of knows what he's talking about. This was mainly somewhat of a philosophical interview of the mindset it takes to hit numbers like that. Right, so here we are with the ninth grade dropout making 450K, I don't know, like almost $500,000 a month. And I mean, I don't know, this Matt Shields himself, dude. What can I say?
Dude, I'm stoked. Thank you for having me, bro. Can't wait.
Yeah, man, it's honestly a pleasure to have you here. I don't really do interviews, but we're going to do this and let's see how it goes. I operated from a place of deep darkness, anger, and fear. And so you dropped out at ninth grade. I mean, you're a 14, 15-year-old, I'm guessing depressed, like perhaps misunderstood, 15-year-old. Like what happened there?
How long you got?
We have a full hour, dude.
I won't cry for the whole hour, I promise, but what did happen there? I've thought about this a lot. I was on a call in Iman Gadzhi's agency program a couple hours before this.
Wow,
and
that's
one
crazy.
One of the things I talked about was how I don't know what made me the way I am. And I don't mean like, oh, I'm so great. I just mean like, I don't know I don't know if you've reflected on what has made you who you are, or if maybe the audience has reflected on what has made them who they are. But I thought back and I was like, well, man, what has shaped me? And the good, the bad, and the ugly. What has shaped me? And I was thinking, I said it on that call just a couple hours ago. I was like, I don't actually know where my insecurities really stemmed from. I don't actually know where the darkness actually stemmed from. And I'm not like, it's not incredibly dark. I'm not like a psycho. I mean, at least I hope not. But I think all great entrepreneurs, all people who are in the light, have an equal and opposite form of darkness that they are combating and that they're using as motivation and that they're running from. It's like they're trying to outrun this shadow. And so the bigger the shadow is, the more they have to run. So dude, I wish I knew exactly where it all started from. I used to think it was my parents got divorced. I was a younger sibling. Maybe that was it.
Right.
I don't know. I don't know.
So like what happened though? Like can you like walk me through what's like that decision making process? And actually the reason why I asked this question is because my little brother is right now in that same situation. Right? He's a 14, 15-year-old guy. He isn't doing SMA or any of this, but he really wants to drop out of high school. And it's around the time that classes start. So it's like they're about to start probably in a week. And he's exactly in that same place, actually. Like in that place where he doesn't want to go to school, he feels misunderstood there. And he like, I guess like what would you say to that version of yourself?
Yeah. Okay. You have a long journey ahead of you.
Hmm.
It is not going to be easy, but it will be worth it, and it is possible. So I'm
Hmm.
going to shoot you straight. I'm not going to give you the woo woo, oh, it's all going to be fine. Like, it's going to be hard, but
Yeah.
it will be worth it and it will be possible. And I feel like I went through everything I went through for a reason. So, because
Hmm.
you are the most qualified to teach the version of yourself that you used to be.
Yeah.
So people like your brother, I'm the most qualified to help people like your brother because I literally used to be that.
Yeah.
I can relate to it firsthand. I know exactly what it takes because I was in the tunnel myself,
Hmm.
stuck. I can just jump down with him and show him the way out.
Yeah.
So I think I say all of that because I feel very like passionately that you go through everything you go through for a reason. You just
Hmm.
can't forget what that reason is. It's to help the previous version of yourself. That's the gift that we get. Now, what would I say to actually help that person? You have to first reflect. Like, you really have to start introspecting. The best thing I did as a young person is I always was having a conversation in my own mind. And it sounds like
Hmm.
a little crazy, but I was always like, okay, why do I feel this way? Why
Yeah.
do I think that way about that person? Why does that person's opinion of me affect me?
Hmm.
And I just started to ask myself these questions. I started to become introspective, which is an interesting word. Spect means to look or to seek, and then intro
Hmm.
means within. So to introspect is to seek within. So I think the
Right.
sooner you start seeking within your own self as a person, the sooner you start uncovering answers and hidden wisdom that is in yourself because you are simply looking for it. The Bible says,
Hmm.
seek wisdom as if it is precious jewels. Seek for it as if it's hidden treasure, right? And that hidden treasure is within yourself. Wisdom is within yourself. But what do you have to do? You have to start seeking for it. So you become
Hmm.
introspective. That's the very first thing I would recommend to somebody like your brother. Start looking in to your mind. Start dissecting your thoughts and asking yourself, why do I think this way? Why am I the way that I am? Why do I feel this way about certain things? And you'll start to uncover more and more about yourself.
Hmm.
And what you do is you build a stronger trust of yourself because you actually understand yourself. It's really
Yeah.
weird. And I know we're getting like super
No, no,
philosophical,
I get it. I get it.
but how many people do you know have no idea who they actually are? Like, they show up every day, they walk around, they talk to you, they talk to the neighbor, they talk on Instagram, but they have no idea who they actually are because they've never taken the time to sit down with their own thoughts. They have relationships with all these people, but they don't have a relationship with themselves.
So
And
who are
so
you, Matt Shields?
you're philosophical too. I can tell by the questions. It's gonna be a fun conversation.
Yeah.
Um, I'm a very flawed man that is trying every day to be less flawed,
Hmm.
I'd say. That's the best description I probably could give.
How do you try to be less flawed? Information? Just introspection?
Introspection is a very first important step.
Hmm.
Introspection. Sitting down with, like, today, I meditated outside for 10 minutes, just sat with my own thoughts. I
Yeah.
just let things come. I don't try to change it. I don't try to just focus on my breath. I just let the thoughts come. And I
Yeah.
just think about them. And I don't force thoughts. And I
Observe.
have, go ahead.
No, no, you just
Observe.
observe.
Yeah,
Yeah.
observe. I have friends who are very, very spiritual
Hmm.
um and I could tell you some crazy stories about these people, but they talk about encountering God and encountering this higher power. And I had a friend who told
Hmm.
me he first started hearing the voice of God when he started meditating daily, and he just sat there, invited God in, sat with his own thoughts, sat with his own breath, and then
Wow.
just saw what would come. And that
He's
guy has said things to me and said things to my friends that I don't even know how he knew it. So it's like that's that's a crazy side note, crazy side story,
hmm.
some wild stuff
Yeah.
that's drastically changed my perspective of life in the last years, hanging out with people like that. Um, but I think it really does start with number one, introspecting, sitting with yourself, but then inviting God into it,
Hmm.
starting to build a relationship with God. Starting, if you want to transform, what does that do? That assumes an ideal endpoint.
Yeah.
The idea of transformation means that there's a positive end result somewhere, that you are trying to get better. It doesn't mean change, it means transform. So if you want to get better, that means that there's an ultimate end destination. Like there
Hmm.
has to be an ultimate outcome that you wish to achieve. And George Washington he said, I just said like 30 times,
Yeah,
but
yeah.
that gets tricky.
Yeah.
George Washington said that one cannot reason without first arriving at a divine being. I mean, you cannot be reasonable unless you assume and arrive at the fact that there is an ultimate source of reason that
Hmm.
you can mirror and try to emulate in your life. So if you want to transform, you have to identify what is the ultimate end point. What is the objective outcome that I should be trying to optimize for? That's why
Hmm.
when the powerful thing about Christianity, for example, is these people are trying to be Christ-like. A prayer that I've said
Hmm.
many times is make me less like the world and more like you. Make me less like the world and more like you. I've identified Jesus as the ideal outcome, the
Yeah.
ideal person, the ideal representation of life. And so now my view is, how do I become like that ideal outcome? And I think
Hmm.
Jesus is the best example we have. I mean, 2.3 billion followers alive today. He died 2,000 years ago. There's 2.3 billion followers who follow Jesus today.
Yeah.
He was
That's
called a king, but he had no kingdom. He was called a master, but he had no slaves. He was
hmm.
called thing after thing after thing. And he was a man who just shared things with the world, condemned the world for their sins and their hypocrisy, and ultimately went to die to save the world. And I
Hmm.
don't have a better picture of the embodiment of greatness or glory or love or anything that is considered an ideal than Jesus. So to me, to improve and try to get better every day means to try to be more like Christ every day.
Hmm. That's very interesting, actually. I actually have a friend that did this experiment. I think he saw it online or something. That is like for a week, he treated everybody as if they were Jesus. So like whenever somebody does anything, it's like you think, okay, what if they were Jesus? And it's like in this way, you start to try and learn from everybody. And you start to
Mm,
realize, hey, like we are equal. Because like if everybody's Jesus, that means you are Jesus. And you start to learn from everybody and you. And he told me that was like one of the most transformative experiences he had.
mm.
But
It's very deep.
yeah, it was very interesting. But I, when you were talking about introspection and all of that, I saw on one of your podcasts, you mentioned this book called Word Power Made Easy.
Yeah.
And I've noticed how you usually break down different words and you give their meaning. It's like, what have you learned from actually changing the way you speak?
Yeah, so there's an interesting study in the book Word Power Made Easy where
Hmm.
this was in the 1900s. They studied the top 1% of people and they tried to see if they had one thing all in common. They tried to figure out what are the
Hmm.
commonalities from the top 1%. And what they found is it wasn't IQ, it wasn't level of education, it wasn't
Hmm.
where they grew up. The one thing that the entire top 1% had in common was they had a significantly above average size of vocabulary. They were able
Wow.
to use and understand words in a more effective manner than the average person. So,
Jeez.
yeah.
That's crazy.
So I've learned the importance of words as a tool for comprehending complex topics,
Hmm.
to truly being able to understand. Like I mean, words make up the world. What does the Bible
Hmm.
say? In the beginning was the Word. In the beginning was the Word, and the Word was with God, and the Word was God.
Hmm.
Now, take a quick side note here. The Word was God. They're talking about Jesus. Jesus was the Word. In the beginning was the Word was with God,
Hmm.
the Word was God. The Word, Jesus, was God, and the Word became flesh and dwelt among us. Now, word in Greek means logos, which is what that tattoo right there is. It says
Hmm.
logos. And what I've learned is words, this might be a little bit deep, it might be a little bit guru-y,
This is
But
amazing.
words are reflections of God. Because how can you understand anything? How can you communicate an idea? How can you express anything without having a word to do so? It's very hard to really communicate an idea, to teach a lesson, to show love, to really embody these things without being able to use your words to explain them. Now, you can give people hugs, you can give people kisses, like you can show love and you can do a lot of things, but to really, really demonstrate complex ideas, to really understand things, all those are like reflections of words. A tree, I'm looking at a tree right now. A tree is just a word. Without a word,
Yeah.
what is a tree? If there's no word to describe a tree, if there's no word at all, like what's a tree? Nothing. And then nothing's a word.
Yeah. I mean, don't you think though, like, what is there that isn't God?
What is there that isn't God?
Yeah.
You and me? Everybody listening to this microphone, this behind me,
You don't think
all
like
this.
we are all creations of God and just like in some way we are God in some kind of way?
I think we are creations of God. I don't think we are God. Like,
Hmm.
I think you are your father's son. I don't think you are your father.
Okay, yeah.
Right?
Yeah,
Like that brick behind you is not God.
yeah,
That's why the first
right.
commandment of the Bible, the very first commandment is you shall have no other gods before me. Because God knows how easy it is to be deceived of the idols and gods of this world. Everybody has a God.
Hmm.
Even the atheists, even the agnostics have a God. Their God is knowledge. Their God is science. Their God is money. God
Yeah,
is a supreme form of power. So everybody has something that they've defined in their life is the supreme power. It is the supreme driving force in their life. That
yeah.
becomes their God. So I think there is an actual ultimate supreme power that you and I are here because of. And I think it's the most beautiful thing in the world to find that power and to serve that power and to worship that power.
There's actually this quote by Nikola Tesla, which is what one man calls God, the other calls the laws of physics.
Hmm.
And it's super interesting. I mean, especially when I was an atheist, I would think
Hmm.
about that quote all the time.
That's an amazing quote. Wow.
Yeah. Have you ever like done some research in Nikola Tesla by chance?
I haven't. I know he had some theories about like the pyramids and stuff, but I haven't really gone deeper than that.
Yeah, I would honestly like one of the best books I've read is the autobiography of Nikola Tesla. It's like a 3 hour read. I would 100% recommend that, dude, honestly.
Huh.
Um, but yeah, I guess in that kind of, line of thought, you've been like really changing your thoughts, surrounding like God and all these different things lately. And you've been changing, your identity. Or like I've seen you're growing a beard, for example. Before you didn't have a beard. Is that part of that? Is that a way you have to change your identity? Or is it just, am I thinking too much?
Well, I've had the beard for 2 years. So I started growing it
Okay.
first 2 years ago. I've cut it from time to time, so I'll put that one out there. I've had the beard for a little while.
Okay.
But you're right, I've definitely changed a lot. And I
Hmm.
think I'll continue to change. I think the gift of life is self-transformation.
Hmm.
What Jesus teaches is this idea that you can transform yourself into a you can transform yourself into a more optimal and godlike version of yourself. And I don't mean godlike like you are a god. I mean like in the way that God intended for you to be.
Yeah.
And so I think self transformation is the greatest gift we have, and I've definitely gone deep on that journey.
Hmm.
Um, there was something else you said that I wanted to touch on. Could you repeat that question, said? There was something in there that was interesting.
It was about your beard and your identity and how you've been, learning about God and where that was a way to change your identity with your beard.
It wasn't the beard part. There was something else. There was something
Huh.
else. Um, I mean, finding God has definitely changed the way I view myself. It's changed the
Hmm.
way I view you. It's changed the way I view life, for sure.
Hmm.
Oh, Einstein said this. Einstein said the greatest sign of intelligence is the ability to change one's mind. So just 7 months ago, I was a huge atheist. I was a huge nihilist. I was
Yeah.
literally writing a book that was called Nothing Matters at All. That was the name of the book.
Yeah.
Now I'm on fire for God. I believe that we're here and we're created by God, for God, to serve God. And I believe that we all have a purpose. I love life more than I've ever loved life. I'm excited and inspired every day and motivated beyond measure in just a 6-month period because I had the humility to change my mind and admit that I was wrong and to keep an open mind and follow the truth where I felt like the truth led me, and I feel like it led me to God.
Hmm. And I mean, in regards to like changing and believing more in God, like that's usually something that, like a lot of people are very like skeptical about, and I definitely was. Like if you were an atheist, if you were about to write that book, you know how it is.
Dude,
So like,
I'll say this real quick on that note. I remember saying just like 7 months ago, 8 months ago, I was trying to figure out the truth about God, and I was just like so lost and like I was so skeptical, dude. Like my mom's one of the biggest skeptics I know, and I get that from her. I was so skeptical, more
yeah.
skeptical than any atheist I know. And I remember saying, God, if you can convince me that you are who you say you are in the Bible, you can convince anybody. And he convinced me. So yes, I was very, very skeptical. Just wanted to put that out there.
Okay, so I guess like the question was kind of in that note. Like what you told me some of your friends had some experiences, maybe they told you that and it kind of helped you, but did you have like anything like an actual personal experience that it was like this is why, like, yeah, it's clear now.
Um, yeah. Yeah, I had a lot of different experiences, man. I
Hmm.
had a lot of different experiences, and some of them were more in the beginning when I wasn't convinced and I was very, very skeptical. I remember those experiences really like made my head hurt, you know? Like
Hmm.
I had a couple encounters where, I had basically just like sworn off God, and I was like, you know what? I don't think God's real. I
Hmm.
think I think I'm just going to be a good person, and that's that. If God wants to show himself to me, cool. But I'm not going to force it anymore because I was
Hmm.
tormenting myself
Right.
trying to figure out what I thought about God. And then something happened to me that was just like really just bizarre to me, and it made my head hurt. I couldn't sleep that night. It was just like painful. It wasn't like immediately I was like, "Oh, God's real." I was like, "Wait, could I be wrong?" Could there
Hmm.
be a God? Like, is this just a coincidence? It's got to just be a coincidence, right? But then I was like, but it's like really, really weird. It's a really,
Hmm.
really weird coincidence that this just happened right now at this time. And then thing after thing kept happening. And, um,
Hmm.
and then I think when I became convinced though, when I was like, you know what? Like, I, th- because I was becoming convinced of God, a higher power, but I could not get convinced of Jesus.
Hmm.
It was when I read the Bible, I was like, ah, I don't even think this guy was real. I think this
Hmm.
guy probably was like a con man. There's no way he was God incarnate. Like there's no way. I couldn't
Hmm.
get behind it. And then one day I go to church and two young guys there, two of my buddies, they say this prayer for me. They put their hands on my shoulder and they say, God, make your word come alive for Matt. Let him truly
Jeez.
understand your word in your book. I went home that day on fire, like just ready to go home. Like there was another thing that happened after church that was like really just a cool moment for me. And then I remember going home just on fire for God, like I just wanted to read the Bible.
Hmm.
I go home, I pick up the Bible, and it was like it came alive to me. I was like, oh wait, like I started to see the wisdom from it. The words started to make sense. I started to remember the scriptures. I started
Hmm.
to connect with it. I started to ask myself, well, what if this was God? what would this mean if Jesus said this and he was God? And everything just started to become so clear and so powerful. And it transformed me. It changed me. And I wasn't able to shake that feeling after, even if I wanted to. And that's when it got to weird places. Like a few weeks ago, I was falling victim to like lust. And I remember having this weird little interaction in my mind where I was like, well, this might be okay for you to do because, like, do you really believe in God? And if I did that a year ago, right, where I was like agnostic, I didn't know if I believed in God or not, I could justify sin pretty easily to myself by just saying, you don't even know if God's real. And I was
Yeah,
like, yeah,
right.
you're right. I don't know. He's probably not real. Now it's like, if I do that, I have to sit there with myself and I'm like, dude, you know God's real. You did this and you know, like, I can't even convince myself otherwise. That's how convicted I've become. So, um, yeah, there were a number of things that convinced me. It's a whole, I'll probably make a YouTube video on it one of these days, but
That'd be epic.
yeah, yeah, it's been
I'll
a
be the
journey.
I'll be the first to watch that video.
I
So
appreciate you, bro.
that's cool. Um, I mean, you like even though you started like believing in God now,
Yeah,
in many podcasts, I think even before this, like I think I saw this like in Joel Kaplan's podcast, if like almost a year ago. You were
yeah,
like, what's really important to me is treating people right. You know, having good connections, good friends, playing basketball, spending time in nature. I guess like what was important to you before? And like how are you even able to like make that
mm.
change and actually live in your terms? Pre-God, right? Because now we've talked about God, but I guess this is before
Yeah.
that.
That's a really interesting question, man. What changed?
Hmm.
Hmm.
How are you like able to make that change to live in your own terms?
What do you mean, live on my own? Like, how was I able to start living on my own terms?
Yeah, I mean,
Or because I feel like I feel like I was living on my own terms before. I feel like now I'm trying to live on God's terms. So I actually
hmm.
don't feel like I'm living on my own terms now, to be
Okay,
honest
that's
with
a
you.
really good point.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then let's just talk about like the change itself, like how you were able to change.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Bible says this in Jeremiah chapter 29, verse 13, I believe. It says, "You will seek me and you will find me when you seek me with all of your heart."
Hmm.
In Matthew chapter 7, verse 7, I believe, it says, "All who ask receive, all who seek find, and all who knock the door is opened to them."
Yeah.
So all I did to change was I just kept seeking. I kept seeking more and more and more. I read the Bible, I read the word, I prayed, I went to church, I talked about it, I asked people questions, I watched YouTube video. There was no one specific action that did it. It was the feeling behind the actions of wanting to seek, of wanting to know, of saying, look, like, show me, God, show me, and being diligent in that journey. Diligent, not
Hmm.
seeking for a week and then saying, I said if a purple car drove by, God's real. No purple car drove by, so
Hmm.
God can't be real. It was what let me actually seek as if my life depends on it. And that led to me transforming and changing and shifting my beliefs.
That's very interesting. So I guess like was that like the biggest belief shift that because like I suppose going from nihilism to now believing in God. It's like believing in God also entails maybe the afterlife, you know,
Yeah.
stuff like that. It's like maybe when you're scared about your life, do you also think, oh yeah, I'll just go to like you know that it's not gonna end.
Dude, I used to be really, really scared of death.
Hmm.
Really scared of death. Um, And nihilism was, I think, a form of me. It's funny, most people think Christianity is a form of coping with death. In some
Hmm.
ways, for some people, it probably is, no doubt.
Right.
But nihilism was for me too. It was like none of this matters. You're just gonna die anyway. So like nihilism was a way of me coping with life.
Hmm.
Christianity was a way of me coping with death. But
Right.
I didn't subscribe to any one particular belief because of what it like. I didn't become a Christian because it solves my death problems. I didn't become a
Hmm.
nihilist because it solves my life problems. I think those things probably did contribute, if I'm being fair.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I don't remember exactly what the exact question was, but
Yeah.
um,
So how like believing in the afterlife, I guess, stuff like that, how it
yeah.
like impacted. So yeah, I guess
Oh
that's pretty
yeah,
much it.
I'm less scared. I'm less scared. I'm more excited. There's a really good book called Imagine Heaven by
Hmm.
Dr. John Burke, I believe. It's called Imagine Heaven.
Okay.
And
I'm writing it down.
yeah, it tells this guy studied over 1,000 near-death experiences,
Damn.
and he documents what they saw, what they felt, what they heard,
Hmm.
and it matches up very, very interestingly close to what the Bible describes.
Hmm.
Um, in the
Like
book
the
of
light
Revelation.
at the end of the tunnel.
Well, that's definitely a real thing that people experience.
Hmm.
Um, but also a being in a white robe with fire burning eyes that has the voice of a waterfall, which is described, I believe, in Isaiah or Daniel, one of the Old Testament books. It talks about how he had the voice of a rushing water. It talks about
Peace.
it talks
That's
about
crazy.
how it's insane, bro. It talks about how people, bro, it's crazy. It talks about how people, a 4-year-old had a near-death experience where they died and they saw their older sister that died before they were born. So
Hmm.
like there was this 6-year-old sister who died. The 4-year-old never met the sister because I think they were born after. And then the 4-year-old has a near-death experience, meets the sister, goes and tells the parents by name, "This is who I saw. This was her name. This
Damn.
is what she looked like." And the parents didn't believe her. They're like, "Oh, she must have like saw a picture or whatever." And then
Yeah.
the 4-year-old says, "No, this was her name." And they like the girl was like with Jesus, and like it's insane.
Yeah.
And then there's stories of people um meeting relatives that they had lost and seeing them again. And then there's
Hmm.
stories of uh just all kinds of things that are inexplainable. There was one story where this lady went to a place in the afterlife. She died, right? These people all
Hmm.
died and came back. They were
Right.
dead for a period of time and then they come back, which you know what's crazy? 1 in 25 people in America have a near-death experience.
One in
4%,
25.
1 in 25.
That
So if you take
is
like a
wow.
classroom, like one person in there, and it's
Yeah.
dude, a lot of and people don't like talking about it because they're scared it's going to come across as like crazy.
Hmm.
But there was this one story where this lady, it's insane. This lady dies, goes to a place in the afterlife, like has this, encounter. She's like in this incredible kind of forest with trees and water, and she's a painter. So when she comes back to life, she paints it all down, and she says, "This is what I saw."
Damn.
The doctor Her doctor asks her if he could buy that painting from her randomly. The doctor's like, "Hey, could I buy that painting?" The doctor buys the painting from the lady and hangs it up in his room, in his waiting room.
Hmm.
A week later, another patient comes in who also had a near death experience, but more recently. And she says, "I saw that same place when I died." She says, "How did you get a painting of that?" "I've been there.
What?
I've been there." And the doctor said, "When did you go there?" She said, "When I drowned as a kid or something, or when I drowned recently." I can't remember if she had drowned recently or if she drowned when she was a little kid.
Yeah.
She says, I've been to that same place, a completely different person than the one who drew it.
Dude, like I used to watch videos about near-death experiences, and
It's insane, bro.
it's really insane, dude, because like you also look at the people and it's like they are not like famous actors. It's not like it's like you see their face and it's like you see the emotions and everything, and it's like if all of them are fake, it's like it's I don't know, like Hollywood level acting, you know?
Well, the interviews are interesting, but then there's medically and clinically documented near-death experiences. So like
Hmm.
people who die on the operating table, leave their body, and then watch things that happen in the room come back to life and tell the doctors, here, I saw this happen. And the only way they could put, like, they had no pulse, they had no brain activity. The only way they could possibly know is if what they said was true.
Right.
So, like, those those things have been medically documented, clinically documented, and even skeptical scientists like believe that it's true. They just don't believe that that means there's a God.
Hmm.
So at some point, the question becomes who has more faith, the atheist or the theist? Who's who's requiring more faith? For me, I said, you know what? I'm ambivalent. Whether there's a God, I'll be fine. If there's no God, I'll be fine. Show me what the evidence is. Let me follow the evidence where it leads me. And with an open mind, I felt like it led me to God. So that's what I would encourage everybody listening to this to do is keep an open mind and follow the evidence where it leads. Because what if you're wrong? Einstein said the greatest
Hmm.
sign of intelligence is the ability to change your mind. And Einstein believed in God, by the way. So
I think it was unclear though whether he believed it or not.
he believed in God, he just didn't believe in Jesus.
Oh, okay. That
He
makes sense.
believed in a pagan, weird, like obscure God. He believed something like the universe was God, or there was
Oh,
he believed
yeah.
in a higher power, but he didn't believe in Jesus Christ being God.
Yeah, I mean, I do believe there's a God, and it's like I just don't subscribe to any religion, but I do think Jesus was like an actual person that lived in this world and that like did all those things that the Bible relates, you know? And I think a lot of people actually like there's way more spiritual people that just like believe in a God and don't subscribe to any religion.
Yeah.
And especially in terms of like the placebo effect or stuff like that, like there's a lot of people that start to understand now, like, yeah, it's like your beliefs actually do change the things that happen to you.
You know, there's this quote I heard Joe Rogan say actually. He said, scientists want you to believe that they're all about logic and reason if you
Hmm.
grant them one miracle. And that one miracle is the Big Bang, right? So, like,
Hmm.
oh, we're all about being reasonable and logical, except with how all of this got started in the first place. That one we have no idea.
That's true.
So,
There's a quote by Nikola Tesla actually. There's like the scientists of today think deeply, but one can think deeply and be quite insane. Now,
mm,
if one thinks clearly, that's a different thing. Like
mm,
they think deeply instead of clearly. And to think deeply, like you can think deeply about anything and just be insane. Like you see all these conspiracy theories and all these different things. Now to think clearly, it's a complete different thing.
that's really good. I got to check out Nikola Tesla. He's got some good quotes.
Yeah.
Cool.
I love Nikola Tesla, bro.
That's cool.
Um, so I guess is there a matrix? Is there a hidden agenda?
The people who perpetuate the matrix are the real matrix.
Hmm. So Andrew Tate is the
Um,
Matrix?
no, I'm kidding. I think, ah, man, I'm not the biggest conspiracy theorist in the world. Like,
Hmm.
I think we went to the moon. I don't think 9/11 was controlled demolition. I might be wrong. I don't know. I
Hmm.
haven't done enough research. Um,
Okay.
I don't, I don't know. I don't know. Is there a matrix? There is definitely a deep state. There is definitely a group of people who want to control us. How
Hmm.
evil and malicious are their intentions? I don't know. I don't know. I'm not one of them. I don't know them. But if I ever
Yeah,
find out, I'll let you know.
that's good.
Yeah.
Thanks, dude. Thanks for letting me know. So that's cool, man. I mean, we're approaching the end. But what I want to know, dude, is like you're quite like one of a kind in this world. Like, you are not the usual person. You dropped out at ninth grade. Like, you always have this, inner chatter in your head. Like, what are some of those, I guess, like unusual habits that you have? Like absurd things, maybe that,
Yeah.
some people it might look like, what is this guy doing? But to you, it's like, this is life.
That's such a good question, but I really don't want to answer it because I do some weird stuff. I'll tell you though. That's such a good question, dude. That's a really good question. Um, Unusual habits. I mean, I journal all the time. I journal every morning and every night. That's not unusual, but like I journal a lot. I remember when I was in
Hmm.
like third grade, I asked my mom for like 5 journals for Christmas. And then my birthday's in March, so 3 months after Christmas, then I asked for like 5 more journals because I just was journaling all the time.
You fill them all out in 3 months?
Yeah. Yeah, I was writing
Damn.
stories. I was just like journaling all the time. Like I got this one for Christmas. Um, you can see
Hmm.
I'm like 3/4 of the way there, 75% of the way there. But I don't journal as much as I used to as a kid. So that's one thing,
Yeah.
not really unusual. The unusual thing that I do, this is the weird one, bro. This is the weird one.
That's what we're here for, bro.
Feel free to judge me. What I do, um, is I talk through concepts out loud. So I basically like talk to myself. Like,
That's super normal, bro. I do it all the time.
okay.
Like,
Um,
I mean, I don't know if it's
Even
super
no, I don't mean
normal,
like
but
I'm not like sitting down, like just what do I think? I'm like I'll be like walking down. I'll walk outside talking to myself.
hmm.
I'm like, and then I have to shut up because I'm like the neighbor's gonna be like, who's he talking to? Like I'll walk outside
I
and I'll
do
be
the
like,
same thing.
okay, cool. I feel better about myself now. But I'll like imagine like I'm on a podcast or I'll imagine I'm filming a
Me
piece of
too.
content
Exactly.
and I'm
Imagine
like,
in a podcast, dude.
yeah, I'm like, how would I answer that question? How would I explain that? So I do that a lot. I guess you and I both do that. Maybe we're both
Yeah,
weirdos.
that's crazy, bro.
Yeah.
I do the exact same
Um,
thing. Like, I imagine myself in a podcast, people asking me questions, and it's like, huh, and thinking, and
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So I do that. I mean, I walk around barefoot a lot. I used to walk around barefoot like everywhere, like to an extent. Like I never wore shoes.
Hmm.
Um, I only wore shoes when I had to wear shoes to go somewhere. So I did
Hmm.
that. Um, Qigong. Qigong is definitely a
Pretty
weird thing.
cool.
Tai Chi type stuff.
Yeah, it's definitely weird. So you got
Definitely
the
weird.
question. You got the
Yeah.
question.
Yeah. There you go. Yeah, man.
That's cool, man. So then there's only like a few minutes left. So last question. I got it from you, actually. If you had 60 seconds before you died, and you got to leave your son with one piece of advice, you ask this to Joel Kaplan, what
Huh.
would you leave him with? Time is ticking.
I got 60 seconds. I'm gonna keep it suspenseful. I'm gonna keep him on the edge.
All right, that's good.
If you truly follow God, you can't go wrong.
Hmm.
That's it.
That's amazing, man. It's crazy how God has changed you. And like, I think it's really good. Like, the beliefs you have about God is like, at least from what it looks like, they are serving you and they are helping you have like a better outlook on life. So
Oh
that's
yeah,
amazing.
man. When I was a nihilist, I was becoming very, very depressed, very, very hopeless, very, very like just sad, man. Just like, what am I doing all this for?
Hmm.
apathy. I was apathetic. And I bought this program. I know we're done with the interview, but I'll share you with this. I bought
I
this
could add
program.
this if you want.
Sure,
Right.
sure. I bought this program like 12 months ago. And it was about like self-transformation. And it talked about the 9 stages of self-transformation. And it says stage number 1 is apathy.
Hmm.
Apathy means not feeling anything. Being apathetic means like not caring. Like, oh, I just don't like, if
Yeah.
this podcast goes well, I don't care. If this podcast flops, I don't care. If people hate me, I don't care. If people love me, I don't care. Apathy, nihilism. That doesn't even matter. That's where I was. And God pulled me out of that. Praise God, he pulled me out of that. So yeah, but it's a journey, man. It's a journey. I'm still severely flawed. I'm still
Hmm.
working on it every single day. I'm still just trying to figure it all out in this new way and trying to figure out what God has in store for me. It's still a journey. It's still tough, but it is a lot more meaningful and it is a lot more enjoyable. And I'm a lot more
Hmm.
grateful for it too. So